Hello there, everyone. This is Kate Kunkel, and I am a brain health mentor. I am the founder of this group, Prevent Dementia and Alzheimer's, and I was trying to do this live on Facebook from Zoom, but for some reason, there's some strangeness with Facebook right now, so I couldn't do it. So I'm posting this later as a recording. And I decided to do it this way so that I could share it more widely rather than just on Facebook, because it's an important topic. And I want to make sure as many people have access to it as possible. So this is all about brain health. I have created this series called Brain Health Matters, and it's all about looking after your health, your general health, so that you can protect your brain against the ravages of dementia and Alzheimer's. One of the easiest ways we can do this is by preventing toxins from entering our bodies. Why is that so important? Because our brains, while they're only about 5% of our body weight, actually consume 20% of the nutrients and calories and oxygen and blood flow of our bodies. So that's a really high percentage. So that means whatever goes into your body also goes into your brain in spades. So if you ingest something that is not good for you, it's going to affect your brain more than mostly any other organ in your body. And one of the biggest organs in our body, well, the biggest organ in our body that collects all of the toxins, our skin. So today's topic is going to be mostly about external toxins, but there are some others as well. So I'm going to share my screen with you because I want you to see just all the different things that can affect your body and your brain. So we know about pesticides. That's pretty common. And it's something that is very hard to avoid, especially glyphosate, because it is literally everywhere. It's in the water, it's in the air, it's in your food. Even if it's organic food, because it's in the air and the water, it can actually get into organic crops. So that's a tough one. Cosmetics, and we're going to come back to that in a minute, but almost all commercial cosmetics are highly toxic. Bisphenol A, BPA, that we see lots of signs on bottles and things now saying BPA free, but that doesn't really mean anything because the substitutes they're using for BPA are just as dangerous. We'll talk about that also, especially about water bottles. PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, that's something that we heard a lot about in years past where it got into the water supply. And even though we don't hear about it anymore, it's still there. So it's something to be aware of, but it's pretty hard to take steps right now to avoid it. So we're going to deal today with 3 things that we can look after right now. We'll get to those in a minute. But some of the things people don't think about are things like general anesthesia. It's actually a toxin. So if somebody is subject to a lot of anesthetic over their lifetime, lots of surgeries, chances are they've got a pretty big toxic load from those things. That's why people say they have like anesthesia brain. And for some people, it's really hard to come out of it. And for some people, it's days or weeks or months before they feel right again in their brains. So that's something to think about if you have an opportunity to have a general anesthetic versus a local. Always choose the local. Alcohol, drug abuse, and smoking. We know those are toxins. If you smoke, just freaking stop. That's a giveaway, right? Air pollution and water pollution. Those are getting tougher and tougher to avoid because, like I said, all these pesticides and herbicides and all of these things are in our environment. And it's really hard, and they do affect our brain because our brain is taking in so much of our nutrients. That is, it's just going to take in that much more concentrated amount of the pollution. Mold exposure is a big deal. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that. And it actually, there have been many cases where mold exposure is misdiagnosed as dementia. And there are many cases where that diagnosis can in fact be reversed if you go through that. And it's a bugger. It's really hard to do, to reverse toxic mold exposure, but it can be done. It's a lot of work. It's way beyond the scope of this little recording, but it is something to think about. If you have symptoms of dementia or any kind of brain fog, and you have any possibility that you could be exposed to mold, get a screening. Find out if that is what your problem is. Because if it is, you need to take remediative actions right away, because it can only get worse. And not only just for your brain, but it can cause things like lung issues, allergic reactions, eczema, so many problems. So mold is a big deal. And carbon monoxide poisoning, we think that that's just going to kill you right away. But we can be exposed to carbon monoxide and not even realize how dangerous it is, because it's intermittent or not long enough to cause you to pass out or pass away, but it can affect your brain. So you need to have a monitor in your home. That's a very important thing. Again, that's something that we aren't really going to cover here today in the remediative actions, but it is something for you to keep an eye on. Heavy metals, this is a big one. And they are also everywhere, because industry, up until, well, they're still doing it, but they were really dumping a lot of heavy metals into waterways. And they don't go away. They don't just disappear, but they are in the ocean. We've got mercury-laden fish. We've got all kinds of problems just in the water supply, even in what we think of as pure water coming from underground artesian wells. There is still heavy metals everywhere, and in the soil. So those are just some toxins that can be around and affecting you without you really even knowing. And because our brain is such a huge user of energy and nutrients, it's really easy to have problems resulting from these toxins and not even realize that that might be why your memory's failing a little bit, or you're feeling unable to concentrate, or you're feeling brain fog. Those are very typical reactions to any kind of toxic exposure. So before we get into the remediation, it would be a good idea for you to just kind of sit back and think about how your brain is feeling now. If you have a pretty good diet and you exercise and you keep learning new things, which is an important part of brain health, but if you keep doing those things and otherwise you're feeling pretty good, but there's something that's just not clicking. Maybe you're feeling tired, or just not collecting thoughts very well, or you're being really impatient. Those sorts of things are very much symptoms, or they could be symptoms of toxic exposure. So one of the ways to eliminate those as a possibility is to start taking the steps you need to take to get rid of some of those toxins, as many as you can. So I'm going to go back and share my screen again, only this time we're going to show some things that we can do to help. What can we do? So I've already talked a little bit about limiting your exposure. And certainly that's going to take a lot of work. But let's start with the 3 things you can do right now to help limit exposure to toxins that could affect your brain. The first thing, and the easiest thing, is to cut out the cosmetics and other things in your environment and on your skin that are toxic. So think about this for a minute. How many things you put on your face, on your hair, on your skin? Women use lipstick that is long lasting, that actually has lead in it. It's very toxic. If you do hair color, that is a toxin. Now, there are some natural, like henna dyes, those sorts of things, but anything that comes from the beauty salon or the normally whatever comes from the beauty salon or the drugstore, those are toxins. Just, I mean, I went natural, I think 9 years ago or so, and I think it was the best decision I ever made to just let the gray hair come out. I am what I am. That's all what I am, like Papa used to say. But really, it's worth it. You're worth it. They used to have a hair color commercial. You're worth it, but you're worth it to not color your hair, to not, use makeup every day. I use it's like a powdery thing. It's a mineral thing that I use for my face. And I rarely use lipstick. I haven't got any really natural stuff here in Ecuador. I haven't found it yet, but I try really hard to just not put those things on my skin. Aluminum in antiperspirant, that's something you can eliminate. We're supposed to sweat. That's what we do to get rid of toxins. So by clogging up the pores with aluminum and putting toxins in your body with the aluminum, then you're just setting yourself up for all kinds of problems. When my mom got breast cancer, the first thing the doctor said was stop using antiperspirant. So that tells you something right there. If even a conventional doctor would say stop using it. So those are some things you can easily do right now. It's not going to make a big change in your life in terms of how much effort you have to put into things, but it will mean reading labels. So when you go to buy soap, try to avoid the things with ingredients you can't pronounce, and with fragrances. Don't buy personal products with fragrances because those fragrances are toxic in 99.9% of the time. The same with perfumes. Yes, it smells pretty, although I hate perfume. I don't really like it at all, but you don't need to have that chemical concoction on your body. Get some essential oils. If you really want to have a nice smell, one of the people in my group said she uses peppermint oil. Perfect. I'd love to smell like a peppermint, or lemon oil or something like that. And if you have to put it in a carrier oil, that's okay. Something like coconut oil or olive oil. But those little things can make big differences. And we had a guest on this show, Angie Ciroli, and she's an expert in essential oils, and I'm sure she could help you there with that. So just getting rid of the toxins on your body. So watch your shampoos, don't do hair color or perms, or most nail polish is highly toxic. In fact, people who work in nail salons are more likely to develop dementia. So that's something to think about. That's step number 1. So step number 2, let's go back to our screen. Step number 2, secondhand smoke. Most of us don't live in areas now, thank goodness, where there is a lot of secondhand smoke, but secondhand smoke can come from many sources, and I include gasoline fumes and things like that, and the toxins that are in our air that are immediately something we can do about. So don't hang out where there's smoke, and certainly don't smoke. Though that toxin you don't need at all. And gasoline fumes. Most of us have to pump our own gas these days. Now, I know that in some states and provinces, you can't just turn on the handle and walk away because they've got safety features on it. But if you can, put it on and get away from the fumes. If you can't, just put it on automatic, then at least direct so you're not standing right over the fumes going into your car. So that's 2 things that you can do right now to help your brain. See how simple that is? We don't have to make it complicated. And then the last thing is plastic. So that is the bane of my existence, I swear, because everywhere I go here in Ecuador, it's plastic. In the ocean, in the streets, in the fields, it's everywhere because people use too much plastic. Straws, cups, spoons. But in addition to its damage for the environment, it is really bad for your brain because those toxins are being released when it's exposed to cold, when it's exposed to heat, when it's exposed to the sun, the toxins in the plastic are released. That's why our oceans are such a mess. And that's why nobody should eat fish, as far as I'm concerned, because it's all toxic from the plastics and the mercury and all the other stuff that's in the oceans. But for the thing you can do right now to protect your brain, cut out anything that's in plastic. That means no bottled water. You shouldn't drink bottled water anyway. If you live in an area where there's any kind of decent water supply and you don't like the taste, filter it through a charcoal filter. So that's water. Straws. You shouldn't drink out of straws. Don't buy plastic cups and plates and forks and spoons for birthday parties. Just wash the dishes. Just wash the dishes. Or if you're going to have to use disposable things, use the bamboo or the paper, recycled paper plates. See how easy that was? Right away, without really doing anything to change your life, you help change your brain. Just by thinking a little bit about these things. So the stuff you put on your skin, how you get your food into your body, or water or food into your body, and finally, the immediate air around you. No, we can't fix all the air pollution. We can't fix all the water pollution. I wish we could, but those are 3 little steps you can take right now to help protect your brain. So I'm going to be posting this in the Facebook group and everywhere. If you could please let me know what you're going to do right now to protect your brain with one of these 3 steps. Thanks so much for joining me. See you next week. And we're going to be talking next week about gut health. See you then.